The 2023 MLB season changed the game of baseball forever, and the league thrived because of it. The ban of the shift allowed lefties like Corey Seager to drastically improve from the years prior, helped Ronald Acuna Jr. become the first ever player to post 40 home runs and swipe 70 bags in a single season. The pitch clock made the game flow far better than the previous few years, and the new playoff format with 6 teams rather than 5 created as much chaos as most would have anticipated, with the Diamondbacks being one of the reasons why. Coming off just a 52-win season in 2021 and 74 in 2022, they entered the campaign with little playoff expectations. And these thoughts only heightened when they sat just 57 and 59 more than halfway through the season. But after sneaking into the playoffs on the final day of the season, they would go on to take down World Series favorites en route to their first World Series appearance since 2001. This is the story of the 2023 Arizona Diamondbacks and their improbable rise to stardom. To understand just how the D-backs managed to configure a team that went from 52 wins to the World Series in just 2 years, we first need to go back to 2017, where everything changed for this franchise. This season, the Snakes managed to flip their record from 2016, winning an impressive 93 games with stars on both sides of the ball. Offensively, Paul Goldschmidt was his typical self, hitting 36 home runs while knocking in 120. Jake Lamb continued his dominance from the previous season and hit 30 home runs for the first time in his career while posting a solid 844 OPS, and their big deadline acquisition in JD Martinez went on to become one of the greatest midseason acquisitions in league history, with 29 homers and 65 RBIs in just 62 games. Their pitching was also shut down, having one of the best rotations in the league, with Patrick Corbin posting the highest ERA at a still respectable 4.03. In total, the pitching staff ranked 3rd in the league in ERA with a 3.67 figure and gave the club one of the most well-rounded teams heading into the playoffs. But following a sweep at the hands of the Los Angeles Dodgers in the NLDS, the D-backs were sent back to the drawing board, where they would go on to struggle in the following years. In 2018, the club had a strange season, because on May 1st, they were 6 games ahead in first place, June 1st just 1 game behind, July 1st back in front, at the start of August tied with the Dodgers, and once again in September. But this is when the wheels fell off, and during the last month of the season, they went a mere 8-19, allowing the Dodgers to take full control of the division. And with star players continuing to age, as well as others leaving through free agency or reaching the end of their contracts, the D-backs decided to hit the nuclear option for the 2019 season on December 5th, 2018 by trading Paul Goldschmidt to the St. Louis Cardinals for Luke Weaver, Carson Kelly, Andy Young, and a draft pick. Then during the season, the club moved star pitcher Zach Greinke to the Houston Astros for 4 guys. This was effectively the end of the contention window, although funny enough, in 2019 they actually won more games than the year prior. But nonetheless, the future looked bleak for the club. In the 2020 season, the Snakes took home their first losing record since 2016, going 25 and 35. For context, that's on pace for just 67 wins in a regular season. Not great. But during this time, they were building for the future, and leading up to the season, they signed Madison Bumgarner to a 5-year, $85 million contract, which shocked everyone. Because although it was obvious his numbers were on the decline, most presumed he would receive over $100 million, but he preferred to be in Arizona for geographical reasons. Probably because he likes to compete in rodeos, but anyways, it was a move the D-backs were hoping would pay off towards the end of his deal, as the team was still nowhere ready to compete in the short term, which became even more apparent as 2021 was one of the worst seasons in club history, managing to win just 52 games, only 1 more than their 2004 campaign. But following their disastrous 2021 season, they showed everyone what they were planning in 2022 and put together a decent season, mainly from players making huge strides in their development. For example, Zach Allen, the man who was acquired for a heavy price tag in Jazz Chisholm Jr., managed to lower his ERA from 4.30 in 2021 all the way down to 2.54, while also finishing with the lowest WHIP and hits per 9 in the National League. Staying on the topic of pitchers, Merrill Kelly, who had posted a cumulative 4.27 ERA in 64 starts the 3 years prior, managed to lower his figure to 3.37 while posting 200+ innings, becoming just one of 8 in the entire league to achieve this mark in 2022. Now onto the offensive side. Christian Walker, who the club acquired prior to the start of the 2017 season, improved everywhere in his game with 26 more home runs in 2021, 48 more RBIs, 108 points in OPS, and became the recipient of the Gold Glove Award at first base. And finally, Dalton Varsho. In his first full season at the majors, he posted 4.8 WAR and was just one of 3 players in 2022 to be aged 25 or under and post at least 25 home runs and 15 stolen bases, putting him alongside great company in Kyle Tucker and Julio Rodriguez. In the end, the club won 74 games, still nothing to brag about, but to improve from 52 to 74 in one season is pretty remarkable and set them up to be a dark horse playoff team in 2023 with many other star performers returning. Except for one in particular, Dalton Varsho. He was moved as a club needed to fill a hole at the catching position. Because while Carson Kelly did manage 2.8 WAR from 2020 to 2022, there was a clear lack of offense as they ranked just 18th in the majors in OPS from their catchers at 674. So they traded a bright young outfielder for a bright young catcher in Gabriel Moreno, who at the time of his acquisition was one of the league's top prospects, and in his first taste of big league action in Toronto in 2022, he hit to the tune of a 319 average and 733 OPS in 25 games. He looked poised to help fill the D-backs' need of a catcher right away and for many years. Also, in this trade, the club acquired Lourdes Gurriel Jr., a left fielder, and while his defense is nowhere close to Varsho's, his bat is just as good if not better. In 2022, he played in 121 games, managing 32 doubles, 5 homers, and 51 RBIs to go along with a 291 average and 743 OPS. But the D-backs were also buying into his track record, which included far more power in his game. This move helped plug in the last remaining holes on their roster and, as mentioned, set them up to be a dark horse playoff team. And after being given a 15.3% chance to make the playoffs by Fangraphs at the beginning of the season, they embarked on one of the most magical campaigns in franchise history. To start the season, the D-backs were tested early with 17 of their opening 23 games against playoff teams the year prior, and the 6 that weren't were against the Milwaukee Brewers, who went on to win the NL Central, and the Miami Marlins, who were a wild card team. Yeah, it's safe to say they had the hardest opening schedule in all of baseball, but despite this, they went a respectable 12-11 in this span, and by the end of the month, they had a record of 16-13, tying the Dodgers for first place in the division. Also, by the end of April, we got a rough idea of what this team was like. On the offensive side, Corbin Carroll emerged as one of the most intriguing rookies in all of baseball, with 13 extra base hits in 28 games to go along with an above 300 average and 910 OPS. Geraldo Perdomo, who finished with the second worst batting average in all of baseball in 2022 with a 195 figure and the worst OPS with a 547, came out of the gate scorching hot with a 383 average and almost 1100 OPS in his first 22 games of the season. In total, the D-backs roster had 6 players post at least 10 RBIs, which helped him score 145 runs in the first month of the season, the 9th most in the league, but only trailed 5th place by 3 runs. It was a great start on the offensive side, but as for the pitchers, they were struggling, because although the club had a formidable front 2 in the rotation in Zach Allen and Merrill Kelly, as well as a few bullpen arms that got off to a great start in Kyle Nelson, Miguel Castro, and Andrew Chafin, they finished April with a team ERA of 4.75, which put them just 22nd in all of baseball, because guys like Peter Solomon, Zach Davies, and Ryan Nelson had rocky starts. But they weren't making $23 million. Madison Bumgarner was, and he was the biggest disappointment of all. In fact, in his first 3 years in Arizona, he held a combined 4.98 ERA in 65 appearances, and in 2023, things could not have gotten off to a more terrible start. In his first outing, he went 4 innings, allowing 5 earned runs. In his second, just 2 in 4 2/3, but it took him 103 pitches. And in his final 2 starts, he went a combined 8 innings, allowing 12 earned runs, to finish the month of April with an ugly 10.26 figure in his first 4 starts. Because of this, he was designated for assignment by the Diamondbacks, who ate more than $34 million remaining on his contract. But this move didn't distract the club from the ultimate goal of making the playoffs, and by July 8th, they held a half-game lead over the Dodgers for first place in the division, increasing their playoff odds from 15.3% on opening day all the way to a comfortable 68.4%. But this is when everything started to unravel. Following the club's 3-2 win over the Pittsburgh Pirates on July 8th, the Snakes went 5-21 over the next 26 games, bringing their record below 500 at 57-59, ranking just 9th in the National League, with the Cubs and Marlins both ahead of them fighting for the final wildcard spot. It truly felt like the team had finally been derailed and their magical start was over. Guys like Lourdes Gurriel Jr. struggled during this time with just a 202 average and 583 OPS, as well as other players that got off to hot starts like Geraldo Perdomo, whose bat also lacked. And the pitching staff was getting touched up every game, managing a 5.85 ERA, the worst in all of baseball during this stretch. All in all, their playoff odds decreased to just 13.4%, even worse than what they were given at the start of the season. Because of this, D-back fans were getting fed up with the continuous losing seasons, which became even more apparent when an article posted by Arizona Republic brought up the thought of firing longtime manager Torey Lovullo. In this write-up, they reposted a Twitter poll taken on August 6th, where 80% of people said they didn't want to see him manage another game. It was definitely an over-exaggeration because, once again, this team got hot, and just a month later, they found themselves playing meaningful baseball in one of the tightest wildcard races in MLB history. On September 14th, the leaders, the Philadelphia Phillies, sat 79 and 67, the Cubs at 78 and 69, and the D-backs, Reds, Marlins, and Giants were all within half a game for the final spot. And with just 15 games left in the season, this was it. After not being in the playoffs since 2017, the D-backs had a great opportunity to bring postseason baseball back to Arizona, and they took full advantage of this, going 8-3 in their next 11 games, while the other teams fighting for the spot struggled. And although they went on to lose the final 4 of the season, giving every D-backs fan a heart attack, the Cubs and Reds also struggled, which allowed them to take home the second wildcard spot. And with the majority of the team entering their first postseason, they took the saying anything can happen in the playoffs to heart and began their uphill journey against the NL Central champion Milwaukee Brewers in the best-of-3 wildcard series. The Brewers were enjoying their 5th playoff berth in 6 years, despite owning a subpar offense which ranked 11th out of the 12 playoff teams in terms of runs per game at 4.5. Instead, it was the pitching that brought them the division crown, managing the lowest ERA in all of baseball with a 3.73 figure. And with Corbin Burnes taking the mound in Game 1, followed by Freddie Peralta in Game 2, they looked to shut down the D-backs' bats to help lift them into the NLDS, while the Zach Allen and Corbin Carroll-led D-backs looked to stay hot and win their first playoff series since 2007. In Game 1, the Brewers got on the board early thanks to a single by Carlos Santana to score Christian Yelich from second base, and in the following inning, Tyrone Taylor homered to deep left field to put the Brewers up 3-0, bringing their win probability all the way up to 81%. But the D-backs didn't quit, and in the top of the third with their golden boy Corbin Carroll up to the plate, he sent a 2-run shot to deep right center field to cut the lead to just 1, and on the very next pitch, Ketel Marte homered to tie the game up at 3 apiece. The long ball continued to be their ticket back into this game, with Gabriel Moreno, who only had 7 homers in 111 regular season games in 2023, taking Corbin Burnes' 2-2 offering to deep left center to take the lead in the top of the 4th. This ended up being the game-winning shot as strong pitching performances by the Snakes staff shut out the Brewers after the second inning to go up 1-0 in the series with their ace Zach Allen looking to complete the sweep. Game 2 was eerily similar to Game 1 in the sense that the Brewers got on the board early. The Diamondbacks came back to take the lead in the following innings, and the pitching held on to their slim lead to take the series. And in these 2 games, both the offense and pitching did their job, but the bullpen went above and beyond. In the regular season, they finished 18th in the majors in ERA with a 4.22 figure, but in Game 1, they picked up Brendan Pfaadt, who only went 2 2/3 innings, by shutting down the Brewers in the next 7 1/3 innings, allowing no runs, and in Game 2, following a quality start by Gallen, they once again allowed 0 runs, this time in 3 innings of work. It was an all-around team performance from the Diamondbacks, who most weren't anticipating would even make it out of the wild card, something Corbin Carroll picked up on, stating, "I think a lot of people counted us out coming into the series, so it felt good to get the job done, especially in 2. We're going to enjoy this one and then take care of business in LA. And boy, did they take care of business. Up against the Dodgers, most presumed this would be the end of the road for the D-backs. However, there was one area they could exploit, and that was the Dodgers pitching. In 2023, their staff ranked 13th in baseball in ERA with a 4.06 figure, a number that is far from dominant, and it's because their rotation had barely any depth. Beyond their top 2 in Clayton Kershaw and Bobby Miller, they had 6 guys start at least 11 games for them, none of which were dominant, with the lowest ERA being Lance Lynn, who had a 4.36 figure. Their bullpen, on the other hand, was elite and boasted one of the best closer and setup partnerships in all of baseball in Brusdar Graterol and Evan Phillips, which meant the key for the D-backs in this series was to pounce on their weak starters, because if they didn't, it would be tough once their high-leverage relievers entered the game.
Stretch style of Kershaw. Ball hit through the middle. Marte around third. He's going to score. Pitch of this inning is driven to deep left. Back, way back, and off the wall. High fly ball to deep left field. Forget about it. It's gone. And Longoria slams one toward the gap in left center field, and Outman dives but can't get it.
Playing away from home against a 100-win team in the playoffs is never easy, but the D-backs touched up Kershaw for 6 runs after just a third of an inning, and the Dodgers pulled him, putting immense stress on the bullpen that had to pitch 8 2/3 innings, putting the Snakes in a great position the rest of the series, up 1 game and the Dodgers' pen already taxed. Then in Game 2, they once again jumped on the board early, scoring 3 in the first, and in the following inning with runners on first and second, the Dodgers pulled Bobby Miller early just like Kershaw, resulting in them having to dig deep into their bullpen once again to come up with the remaining 7 1/3 innings. They even had to use their star relievers Brusdar Graterol and Evan Phillips in a losing position just to keep the game close. But in the end, the Snakes were able to keep the Dodgers bats quiet with just 2 earned runs. And heading back to Arizona, they were just 1 game away from the NLCS, a place they had not been since they were swept by the Rockies in 2007. That's why when the series shifted to Arizona, Chase Field was as packed as it has ever been, with over 48,000 fans in attendance to see their beloved Diamondbacks play October baseball once again, and they put on a show. In the 3rd inning, with the score still knotted at 0, Geraldo Perdomo stepped up to the plate against Lance Lynn and shot the ball into deep right field to break the deadlock, and their bats didn't stop there. Ketel Marte also found the stands on the second pitch of his at-bat, then Christian Walker did the same, this time to left field, and the next batter, Gabriel Moreno, went back-to-back with Walker to give the D-backs 4 home runs in the inning, becoming the first team in playoff history to do so, and in the process, they knocked out Lance Lynn, forcing the Dodgers bullpen to take the bulk of the innings for the 3rd straight game. And while they were able to come in and put zeros on the board, it didn't matter, because once again, from strong pitching performances by the D-backs staff, they were able to hold the Dodgers to just 2 runs, sending them to the NLCS, and every baseball fan into a frenzy as an 84-win team just took down a 100-win team in the playoffs without ever playing from behind. But you want to know what the most impressive part of this series was? It was the fact that they held the Dodgers offense to 2 runs in all 3 games. In 2023, they were only held to 2 or less runs in 3 straight games once throughout the entire regular season, and that came in mid-April, which is just a great homage to how well they pitched. Their starters tossed 16 innings, allowing just 2 earned runs, and their bullpen allowed just 4 in 11. They shut down the hundreds of millions of dollars the Dodgers spent on their lineup, with their best 2 batters in Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman going a combined 1 for 21 in the series. Their victory over the Dodgers set them out to play against a fellow wildcard team in the Philadelphia Phillies, who the year prior went on a run just like the D-backs, managing just a 21-29 record in the first 50 games of the season before figuring things out and going on an incredible run as a wildcard team, eventually finding themselves as champions of the National League, being tasked with taking down the mighty Houston Astros. In the end, they were not able to win the final game of the season, and with a sour taste of defeat still in their mouths, all that stood in front of them from getting the chance to right their wrong was the D-backs, and it seemed as though they would be getting their second chance after all, as they took Game 1 5-3 and Game 2 by a score of 10-0. But despite being 2 down, it never felt like the D-backs were out. After all, the Phillies still had immense pressure to finish the job, make it back to the World Series, and fix their wrongdoings from the year before. The D-backs, on the other hand, entered the season with barely any playoff expectations, yet found themselves playing for the National League pennant. They had nothing to lose, and sometimes that is when a team is most terrifying. In Game 3, with the score tied 1-1 in the bottom of the 9th with the bases loaded, Ketel Marte stepped up to the plate against Craig Kimbrell, who started off the at-bat with a fastball up and in for strike 1, putting him in the driver's seat because for the season, once he started an at-bat with a strike, he allowed just a 147 opponent batting average and 195 on base percentage. And on the other side, Ketel Marte's numbers dipped to a mere 231 average and 299 on base percentage after a first pitch strike. But on pitch number 2, this happened.
Deals an 0-1. That's into center field. It's down. In to score is Smith, and the Diamondbacks walk off the Phillies in game.
Winning Game 3 was crucial for the club and brought them just 1 win away from leveling the series, and in Game 4 they once again left it late. To start the 8th inning, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. knocked a double to left field to bring the tying run to the plate in Evan Longoria. And while he did ultimately line out, they still had 2 more outs to play with as Emmanuel Rivera was due up next. But Torey Lovullo made the decision to pinch hit for him and bring in Alek Thomas, a young lefty who, although posted a rather uninspiring slash line during the regular season with a 230 average and 647 OPS, he fared much better against righties with his average 110 points better and OPS by 266. This ended up being the perfect play, as on the 6th pitch of a hard-fought battle, he sent a game-tying 2-run shot into deep right center field, igniting D-back fans all throughout the stadium. Then later on in the inning, now with a runner on first and second with 2 outs, Gabriel Moreno stepped up to the plate in a crucial position. Get a hit and score the go-ahead run, or get out and potentially waste the last chance to win the game. These types of situations are typically ones younger, inexperienced players don't perform too well in. But with less than a full season's worth of MLB games under his belt, he took the at-bat like a veteran, and on the 5th pitch he sent a line drive to left center field to score the go-ahead run, and with closer Paul Sewald taking the 9th, the D-backs went on to win by that score. With the series now level at 2 apiece, both clubs looked to their respective aces as the Phillies sent out Zach Wheeler, who posted a .361 ERA across 192 innings, and the D-backs sent out Zach Gallen, who finished 3rd in Cy Young voting and was just one of 5 to finish with at least 200 innings on the season. With these two on the mound, the game was destined to be a low-scoring pitcher's duel, and it seemed to be that way as Wheeler held up his side of the bargain, tossing 7 solid innings, allowing just 1 earned run. Gallen, on the other hand, found himself in trouble early as Bryson Stott sent home the game's first run, scoring Schwarber from second and sending Harper to third. Then, on the very next at-bat, the Phillies scored another run, this time from poor defense all around as Moreno, the catcher, was not able to catch the ball cleanly and apply the tag on Harper. Gallen ended up leaving the game after 6 innings, allowing 4 earned runs, with the other 2 coming off solo shots, one by Schwarber and the other by Harper, helping the Phillies go on to win the game by a score of 5-1 and put them 1 win away from a ticket back to the World Series, meaning with the next 2 games being played in Philly, the D-backs were on the ropes for the first time all postseason, and the pressure was officially on. That's why it was so crucial for the veterans to come through to help alleviate some of the pressure the younger players felt, and in the second inning they did just that, with Tommy Pham and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. hitting back-to-back homers, and later on Evan Longoria knocked in another run via a double to deep left field. These 3 runs proved to be all they needed as Merrill Kelly and the D-backs pen shut down the Phillies bats, only allowing 1 run on 6 hits to force Game 7, something Tommy Pham was proud about in his post-game interview. It speaks a lot about the guys in that clubhouse, especially against this team. It's just sometimes when you count a team out from the get-go, and when that team easily falls behind 0-2, you get that perception. But we always felt like if we got some good pitching, played great defense, and we played our game, that we could win this. It seemed as though this message stuck perfectly with his fellow teammates, as in Game 7 they got decent work from their starter Brendan Pfaadt, made their plays in the field, and played their classic brand of baseball, which was perfectly on display in the top of the 5th inning. To start off, Emmanuel Rivera singled to center field on a ground ball, Geraldo Perdomo proceeded to bunt him over into scoring position, Corbin Carroll knocked him home with a game-tying single up the middle, then with Gabriel Moreno up to the plate, he stole second base to put himself in a scoring position where he would go on to score the go-ahead run via an RBI single by Moreno. And although he did get thrown out trying to advance to second, the damage had already been done, and the D-backs were now in the lead, which they extended following a sac fly in the top of the 7th off the bat of Corbin Carroll. And with just 9 more outs before their first World Series berth since 2001, the D-backs brought in Andrew Saalfrank in the 7th, a southpaw to help face the Phillies lefties, with Brandon Marsh and the ever-powerful Kyle Schwarber due up in the inning. It was a move that worked perfectly at the beginning, as he managed to get Marsh to strike out on 4 pitches, but Pache worked a walk, and with Schwarber up as the tying run, he made sure not to give him a pitch he could do damage on, but by doing so, walked him too. And with Trey Turner due up as well as Harper on deck, it looked likely the Phillies would claw their way back into the game.
Here he comes, Turner in the air to center field. Alec Thomas, routine for him. And both runners retreat. Hitters count. Harper, a high fly ball to center field. Thomas settles under it. And Kevin.
These 2 at-bats were by far the most crucial of the game thus far, and proved to be the last test for the D-backs, as the Phillies went 1-2-3 in both the 8th and 9th, giving them just their 2nd World Series appearance in franchise history. This meant everything for Arizona and their fans, who had been through a lot of hard times in the previous few years. In 2017, in what many presumed would be their first deep run in the postseason in over a decade, they were swept by the Dodgers in the divisional round. After the 2018 season, they said goodbye to their longtime franchise icon Paul Goldschmidt, sending him off to St. Louis. And in 2021, they lost 110 games, including a spell in which they lost 38 of 43 from mid-May to the end of June. That's why to make it to the World Series just 2 years later is an extremely impressive feat, and they did so by being aggressive. Have you noticed in this video how a lot of the big plays or memorable moments happened from a player they acquired before or during the 2023 season? Gabriel Moreno was coming in clutch throughout each of the first 3 rounds of the playoffs with timely hits, far more power than he had ever displayed before, and of course his trademark elite defense. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., the add-on in the same deal, set career highs in home runs, managing 24, and RBIs with 82. Then in the playoffs, although he did struggle in the wild card round, he rebounded in both the NLDS and NLCS. The truth is, I could go on and on about the players they acquired, like Evan Longoria, who provided great veteran leadership, or Tommy Pham, another veteran who is a catalyst in the NLDS with 6 hits and 4 runs scored. All of these acquisitions help surround a young core of players like Corbin Carroll and Zach Gallen, and together they look to bring home the club's first World Series trophy in over 20 years, with the only team in their way being the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers enter this matchup with their own history to write as well, having never won the World Series since being inaugurated all the way back in 1961. They have come close, falling just a few wins short in both 2010 and 2011, but never managed to win the final game of the season, something they were looking to change in 2023. And in the end, they were the ones who came out victorious, ending the D-backs' magical run in just 5 games. But let that not take away from the incredible feats this group accomplished in 2023, because this team was the epitome of fighting to the last pitch and giving everything they had to win the game, even if it looked unlikely they could claw their way back. That's why if Torey Lovullo continues to instill this mindset in his players, I will have no doubt this team will continue to develop, and who knows, maybe they'll have another chance at the World Series in the next few years. That wraps it up for this video. It was definitely a longer one than normal and honestly took over 30 hours. So if you did end up enjoying the video, please leave a like to help it reach more like-minded people, as well as subscribing for more awesome baseball content each week. Alright, thank you in advance, and I will see you in the next one.